Our topic today is the new entrepreneurs of Rochester, and following today's talk, one of my colleagues, Brian DeNito, will give a short overview on some of the many ways that the librarians here assist folks with computers, job searches, and business-related topics. The Rochester Public Library provides many resources and services for entrepreneurs and small business owners, from special databases, notary services, and Rochester business research specialists who can assist patrons with finding industry and market information as well as sample business plans. Experts at the Catherine Carlson Patent and Trademark Center can help patrons navigate the processes for obtaining those as well. Our guest speaker today is Richard Glazer, Senior Financial Advisor at Merrill Lynch Wealth Management and co-creator of RockGrowth, the portal for innovators and entrepreneurs in the Rochester and Finger Lakes area. Richard has taught entrepreneurship at RIT. He has also co-founded and was president of Digital Rochester, and he was an original board member of the Greater Rochester Enterprise. Please join me in welcoming Richard Glazer.
Thank you. I'm warning you, this is not just about the new entrepreneurs. This is about the new Rochester. Do you hear me, everyone? Yeah, cool. So, the new Rochester, entrepreneurs in the new Rochester and entrepreneurs, whatever. It's all, I think most of you being downtown at the moment have a sense that we're on the cusp of something different in this community. Would you agree it's positive? Do you feel a positive vibe? Yeah. Well, I'm raising kids, and I'm very proud to be a parent raising kids in Rochester right now. So let me start with a short video of people. Anyone's watching on Facebook, you can find this video at rockgrowth.com along with a lot of other content. So let me see if I could figure this out.
What makes a community special and stand out? What makes a place like Austin, Texas, or Boulder, Colorado seem so vibrant and happening? Well, creative people, high tech, culture, and business-building entrepreneurs, they create amazing growth. You may not realize it, but we have all those things and much more right here in Rochester. We are the gateway to the Finger Lakes, and we have one of the highest concentrations of engineers and scientists anywhere. Educated people, we have them by the boatload. We have access to cutting-edge technology specializing in software development, renewable energy, photonics, optics, and much more. Higher ed, we have some of the world's best institutions of higher learning right here. RIT, University of Rochester. Rochester may not have a large population, but we have a big city feel and culture. Think the Rochester Philharmonic, the Memorial Art Gallery, and many other venues. There's so much. High-tech firms, short commutes, low-cost housing. With so much natural beauty and so many outdoor activities in our parks, waterways, the Finger Lakes, it's a great place to raise a family. Plus, there's Wegmans. Rochester is a city that other cities strive to be. How can you beat that? We have all the ingredients for making us a powerhouse in the 21st century. That's why we started RockGrowth. It's a loose organization of Rochesterians who want to build up the community. RockGrowth fosters what we like to call creative collisions among people, the chance encounters and the sharing of ideas that make things happen. RockGrowth is about fostering that energetic spark you get when you have many people with the same goal who are working together, playing together, and communicating with each other. RockGrowth is about igniting that spark and fostering real progress in the greater Rochester and Finger Lakes region. So what do you say? Don't expect others to make it happen. Do something about it. Join RockGrowth. Find out more by going to rockgrowth.com for more information about what we do and, more importantly, how you can help and contribute.
Thank you. Wow, I like that. I don't know if a good producer or videographer creates stuff. I mean, because the message there, as I'm listening to it again, is join, participate. I've done a bunch of events. Let me see if I can get it. Ooh, it worked. Sorry, let me just get back to where we should be. I think I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. All right, I did an event about a year and a half ago at RockGrowth. We have it, RockGrowth Candids. And at RockGrowth Candids, they occur every other month. And we feature a prominent innovator or entrepreneur, conduct an open interview. We record them. It's at the downstairs cabaret. We typically have a packed house. It's a very tight schedule. We provide food. It's free. We ask people to register. And we did one event just following the election in my God, it seems so long ago, 2016 in November. And we featured the two chiefs of staff in the city, one for the city council and one for the mayor. At that time, it was Jeremy Cooney and Andrea Gazzetta. And it was a wonderful interview. But then the Q&A turned into a food fight. And I started hearing this like, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. And it's like the whole victim stuff. Maybe that's why I'm a positivist. I'm attracted to entrepreneurs and innovators. My entrepreneur friends, if they see an obstacle, they try to figure a way around it. They don't blame government. They don't blame taxes. You know, none of the successful entrepreneurs who are building really cool companies. And I will tell you, over the last 6 months, there have been events in this town that resemble any of those great communities I've referred to that 20 years ago were not hotbeds for entrepreneurship and innovation or venture capital. Boulder, Austin. I was a venture capitalist. If you said you were looking for deals and opportunities in Boulder, Austin, or Portland, Oregon, I was like, what the heck? Are you doing this for a living? Or you just like to go to those places? In 20 years, I predict that this area, and even sooner, it's because it's happening. The last 6 months, some companies have been sold or have obtained financing that put them on the status of any great company anywhere in this country or in this world. So anyone not hear about the $50 million contribution to RIT? Okay? That's world class. That stuff's supposed to happen in the Valley, right? It doesn't happen in Rochester. We're a little mild-mannered in upstate. Let's toot our horn. This is a 32-year-old kid. You know? I don't think he's been married and been through the struggles of having kids and any of that stuff. 32 years old, barely made it through RIT, started the company in Connecticut, realized this is a great place to start a satellite office. That satellite office now represents 200 people and 5 floors in a building that used to be called the Chase Building. I worked there twice. After I moved up here in 96, 97 for Manning and Napier, and when I arrived at Merrill Lynch in 2006, I got to see it at the beginning of the end and then towards the end. And Midtown Plaza was still there. And if you walk in, I encourage you to walk into what's now the Metropolitan and what the Galena family, with their own money, they're not looking to Albany, they're not complaining about taxes. With their own money, that building is rising like a phoenix from the ashes. It's gorgeous. And they're doing innovative things. And that's what we have in our DNA in this town. And it's irrepressible. So we're even fighting that negativity that somehow creeped into this town around the time I moved up here. And I don't think I had anything to do with it. But I'd suggest that for 180 years, Rochester was among the most progressive, innovative communities, and it just doesn't disappear. I'll share one incident. For some reason, I got invited to go to it was at the Dryden Theater. And I walked into the room and I felt young. And I'm older than I look. A lot of people resembling you in this room, you know, a little older. That's okay. Age is, I'm not an ageist. We need to mix up old and young, and that's like really good when the old and young mix, and people somewhere in between. I walked in and I sat down in this room, and everyone there, I think, had a PhD in physics, and they were there because most of them worked at Kodak, and the person who was presenting had just published a book on Hawkeye and all the remarkable stuff that was going on from the 50s through the 70s just down the road. Stuff they can't even talk about still. You know, without Kodak, we would not have been able to land men on, or when we haven't done that yet, on the moon. We wouldn't have been able to determine how many ICBMs were pointed at us by the old Soviet Union. We wouldn't have been able to fix the Hubble. Probably if Kodak got the contract originally, it wouldn't have needed fixing. And he told that story. And I'm thinking, all these people were involved in this. They didn't disappear because Rochester stumbled. They had kids, and those kids went to city schools, Penfield, Brighton. Those kids didn't disappear. They're still around. So anyway, I grew up in New York City. This is me. I'm a Big Apple kid, but now I'm a Rochesterian. I grew up in New York City through the 60s and 70s, and I will tell you, it wasn't the Disney World it is now. Brooklyn was not a place anyone. Well, there were some weird people that lived in Brooklyn Heights, and that was kind of cool and funky, but you didn't, and look what happened in the last 10 years. So all great cities go through a process of rebirth and decline. It's cycle. In fact, the city Tel Aviv in Israel, Tel is a word for that artificial mound that forms because cities kept building on top of the rubble and prior, you know, the prior peak, and they keep building up, and it's like a man-made hill you could find in these ancient parts of the world. So Rochester is in the midst of that. We see it with the inner loop. We're throwing more our rubble into that inner loop. Who knows what an archaeologist will determine in several hundred years from that process. So I'm ranting, I'm going off, but I'm going to share with you some just sort of pictorial images of what makes a healthy entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I'm going to throw out some ideas, and I'm going to do it fairly rapidly. But I'm an open door, an open book, and I have an open door. And if any of you want to grab coffee, John knows where I hang out, or you want to talk about it further or email me, I would enjoy the opportunity. And I'd also like for you to consider, registering at RockGrowth, the website, checking out the content. We're building a useful website that there's a real void in local media for stuff. We have a lot of original content, not just the interviews we conduct, those are posted, but we also have stories and blog posts that you may enjoy. And go to the events. And RockGrowth is designed to be very modern. I like to call it the Linux. For those of you who don't know Linux, it's an underlying architecture that's open source, meaning it's there available for the public to use, and you could build applications on top of it. So RockGrowth technically doesn't exist. It's RockGrowth, if we need to do some funding and we do get sponsorship and money, we work with another nonprofit. So we have not gone through the whole arduous process of forming a 501c3. It's a community-built organization. And if you have, I welcome you to participate and benefit, or if you have ideas on how to help. And as an aside, the mission is to promote to empower the new generation in Rochester. And the new generation isn't just young people. It's to share inspirational stories by some of our greatest innovators. They're not all for-profit entrepreneurs, they're social entrepreneurs as well. It's to cause creative collisions. Business is a contact sport. Invention is a contact sport. It doesn't occur in isolation. And additionally, and maybe this has something to do with my 16-year-old daughter who's very motivated by social justice, everything we do is informed by promoting greater equality of age, gender, class, and race. Diversity of involvement creates better results. When you have equal number of men and women, the outcomes are better. If you have people from various backgrounds, and people get this in the entrepreneurial world because things are measured very well. Either you succeed or you don't. You're selling product or your service or you don't. And the new great companies that have been merging get this. So, anyone recognize these companies on the left? Story. I work at Merrill Lynch now. I don't trade, I don't do all that stuff. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs in planning and help build their company. The other day, someone texted me, a client, and he said, I'm really apologetic because he knows I don't like this stuff. But what are the option prices for Kodak stock? It was the day they announced cryptocurrency, I don't know. I go into an office of someone who does a little option trading for his clients. And I said, how do you look this up? And he said, oh, on this screen. And he said to me, what's the ticker for Kodak? Two financial advisors at Merrill Lynch don't even know the ticker. So that's an example of how irrelevant that company has become, unless you're employed there and you're still feeding your family. But it is not a player or a factor in this community anymore. Yet, we all see downtown reemerging. Much of the data appears to be positive. Something's going on. And these are amazing companies. Some of them are clients. Some of them are run by friends of mine. You see Dado. That's the company that was founded by the fellow Austin McCord, who contributed $50 million to RIT. Above it, Cloud Checker is a remarkable company. iCardiac was just sold for $220 million. It's a U of R spinout, or connected to the original technology was connected to U of R. Biooptronics just did a $30 million partial exit and capital raise, and is going to continue growing here. Mind you, none of these companies are in the business model, the plan that the economic development people are hatching or have developed through the Regional Economic Development Council. Now, I'm part of one of the committees. I enjoy my involvement. It's called Entrepreneurship and Development. It's co-chaired by Chris Whitman. But there are moments I have to sort of hold my nose in this process, because I've discovered up here over the years, there's been this like reflexive reaction that the government is going to save us. And I won't editorialize about Albany, but let's just say I don't think Albany ranks the highest in terms of transparency and effective governance among the 50 states. And I don't want to be, and entrepreneurs don't look towards these sort of messiah savior types. They get stuff done. So you have all these great companies that have been merging, and there are just a lot of there is a technology theme, although the ag sector, Ledestri, you know what Wegmans is doing, and their whole supply chain is quite remarkable. How does it move? Oh no. I can't get it to respond, so let me try this. Oh, battery is running low. Remedial, hey, someone do a commercial. Fortunately, I have a power cord. Now, when I teach entrepreneurship and I explain the methodology we call lean startup, you basically, whether it's going to be a for-profit or not-for-profit, you have to solve a problem that people want solved. You're not this engineer who creates something that's sort of whiz-bang and you're going to argue with the world that they need it. One of the great problems, batteries. Whoever solves that problem is going to make a lot of money, and that's why there are a lot of major companies and startups that are trying to solve various components of that. Elon Musk knows that. All right. All right. So what I've been trying to share with you is just walking around in life. We're all preoccupied with stuff. I happen to be a student of this, and I'm professionally involved, and it's my passion. But just let's say there's a big iceberg, and walking through life in this town or reading the newspaper or watching the news, you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. There's so much underneath. Basically, there are some great thinkers and books that my friends who are part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and I'm plugged in throughout upstate. There are a bunch of us who are trying to actually work on various regions starting to understand that we're one, or we're all interconnected, because ultimately if you go to various communities, major metropolitan areas, an hour and a half commute, one way is not exceptional. And within an hour and 15 minutes, if you go east, you're at Syracuse, and west, you're in Buffalo. And it's an easy commute. And we actually, there are complementary resources, and when you add up the numbers, you actually do have a population equivalent to an NFL city. So it's roughly 3 million people live on that corridor. Don't forget Ithaca and the brilliance that goes on there. And I was, as a venture capitalist, one of my more successful investments was in Ithaca. They're just tremendous. There's a very vibrant startup scene there as well. So the left represents the traditional companies which want things orderly, like the old days. Kodak, change. Ooh, that's hard to handle. In fact, the culture was trying to deny that change existed. And the world does change. That's the one predictable thing. So what we like to, one of the great thinkers and writers about it, he now works at the Kauffman Foundation, Victor Huang, wrote a book called The Rainforest. And a good, healthy startup community is a rainforest. None of this is going to, startup world, doing entrepreneurship is not an engineering problem. It's not like I will create a model and there's going to be a finish and it's going to be yes or no, it's going to work or not. Entrepreneurs, and we have one great one here who's so modest and mild-mannered, you pivot, you shift. Like over the last 20 years, how much has your business changed? Well, now the cloud, like when you started, it was all clients, was it client server? And it's like, the world changes. If you're not prepared to shift and pivot and respond to the market and the customer, you're dead. So anyway, on the right-hand side, something that grows and emerges and sprouts might end up being the next master species or superior species. On the left, it's considered a weed, and you need to eradicate it. So, by the way, weirdness, innovation is good, and Rochester has a pretty geeky, weird, interesting culture. And that is one of our assets. So stuff happens with all this kinetics and people interacting. Healthy entrepreneurial ecosystems form molecules. It's not about atoms. And it's also not about hierarchy. I hate it. That's perhaps why I'm entrepreneurial. I can't, we do big companies well in this country, but I can never understand being miserable for a year or two because your prior boss was replaced by a new boss who's a jerk. And then you go home and you kick the dog because your boss is a jerk. And I'm thinking, if I have a jerk who's a boss, I'm going to try to figure out how not to have that boss and leave or something. So that's not a value judgment. But I'm telling you, the agile, flexible companies are flat. And my friends, when you get around these entrepreneurs, they all agree the worst hires they ever made had the best resumes. And moreover, they're not hiring much anymore for technical expertise. In certain areas, if you're going to code, all right, but most of the great coders, a lot of the great coders are self-taught. They might have been math majors. They might have been musicians. But people are hiring based on character. If it's a growth company, you take a job. 3 months later, the job is different. The company might have had 10 people when you joined, and 3 months later might have 20. And you've been there longer than half the people already. So they want people who are flexible. We're talking about a knowledge economy and smart people, right? Some need PhDs, but it's not only. I mean, people can end up being quite smart. In fact, we all know the legendary stories about the ones who dropped out of Harvard. I can think of Bill Gates and Zuckerberg. But not everyone completes their college and ends up. My first career was on Wall Street. Now those positions on Wall Street attract the Ivy League parchment. That's one industry, banking and Wall Street, where you see more of it. But it's not necessary. In fact, if you look through the Fortune 500 CEOs, it's remarkable how many of them have ordinary degrees. You know, in certain areas, they might have an engineering degree from Purdue, but we're not talking about Princeton. And Purdue's a very good school, but it's not. It's something more. And anyway, the thesis about building a healthy new economy is that, and Rochester was very successful this way in a different era. It was run by business leaders, white men who got together in a room and made decisions. That's not how it's done anymore, but you definitely need the business leaders driving the economy, whether it's male, female, black, color, young, old. And I do not want to entrust my future to people who are running economic development agencies who are concerned about preserving their job, government officials, politicians, or university leaders. They're all good, but they have different incentive structures. Politicians want to get reelected, you know, and they're all good, but they need to be what we call feeders to the business leaders in the community. And sometimes I'm around people who think making money is bad. Making money is good. It's what you do with the money. You know, there's nothing wrong with making money. There are bad people who don't make money. You know, and in fact, bringing all this development back downtown, I haven't seen any gentrification yet. We need to guard against it, but we're actually making the city more diverse, which a good city is diverse. So, I mean, gentrification is a concern. That doesn't mean to dismiss it, but all this, the repopulation of the population of downtown is occurring in buildings that were not previously residential, much of it. Anyway, the Valley Club on the left, I remember moving up here, and you have to like wear a jacket. On the right, you know, I just came from Midtown, the health club. People are having meetings there. You meet at Joe Bean or a coffee shop at Starbucks. People camp out, and they call it their office. That's where stuff happens. Very, very different way. People used to golf and consider that was business. Like, I'm in an industry now where people think you golf. If I golfed, I'd be out of business. But you've cycled with me. I cycle, and some of the people who are cycling are pretty amazing, like, you know, accomplished people. And yoga's seems like everyone it's doing yoga. So it's a very different type of way of, you know, it's a different world. The DNC. Oh, and we're the home of Gannett. It is so, I'm sorry, there might be someone who works there. I read a good article today, but I'm not relying on the DNC for my news source. Today you have blogging, WordPress, the iPad. I put up RockGrowth. I threw a little ad in there for RockGrowth. If you go to the website, you'll see new content every day appear. We're getting our information differently. And I'm talking about real news. So, when I moved up here, I remember that you had the little carousel, I guess, which was then in the airport, wherever it is now. But now we have all these things. So this I remember Larry Glazer, we all know. I'll never forget, I was taking pictures for a period of time about 4 or 5 years ago of tattoos. The city logo tattoo, a variation of this. You wouldn't believe how many people have it on their body, and they're all under 35. But, and I shared it with Larry. I was like, what? I'm like, dude, people have the pride. You don't have that negativity, and these are gross generalizations. You don't have the negativity among the young people, and many people are returning from Chicago or New York because they've done their 5 or 6 years, and I want to encourage my kids to do their 5 or 6 years in London, wherever they want to, and when they're ready to sit down, settle down, build a family, come back here with all that additional knowledge you acquired somewhere else. And I am from New York City. New York City had brain drain. Like, not everyone who grew up in New York lives there. So it's like, you know, I want to debunk some of the negative mythology around here. But I will tell you, this is a change. There are young people coming back, and they're doing a lot of cool stuff. And they're positive, and they love Rochester. So That's now called the Chamber. I am not a big fan of the Chamber, sorry. Whatever, because I think there's a lot of they're not as clear about some of the things they do as I'd like. None of my startup friends, entrepreneur friends are members of the Chamber. It's relevant to a different sector of the community, and they are not a voice of the larger business community. They are a voice of a subset. So looking to the Chamber to Bob Duffy to speak on behalf of Dotto, Cloud Checker, iCardiac, RSA. He's there speaking on behalf of a different type of organization. So you have all these cool things that my friends are involved with. I started Digital Rochester, it's evolved, RockGrowth. You have anyone here Young Presidents Organization, YPO? Because this is a powerful, it's almost like the Freemasons. And it's global. And it's a network of, you have to be below a certain age to start, below 45, I think, and a certain revenue business. And you go around, people in New York know about it, and it was started here in Rochester. They know who started it. They did not know he was from Rochester. Hickok Belts. I've seen the old factory on one, I think it's Clinton, I'm not sure, St. Paul. So YPO is a powerful, these folks who are starting companies, they know they have to grow. They know they benefit from peer-to-peer contact. So they join groups like Vistage or EO, and they're around here. And we have very healthy, a healthy network of those types of organizations. This is the old incubator. In fact, I'm very involved with High Tech Rochester. And High Tech Rochester has a building in the cornfields alongside RIT. It's called an incubator. Incubators are old school. They're like office buildings with walls, and now what we have, and in fact HTR is relocating this month in the Sibley building, the old tea room, and it's called an accelerator. And if you go in it, there's areas where there are more private offices. There are actually going to be wet labs. And there's an open space called a co-work space. And there's probably foosball. And there are plenty of ways for people to let off steam. And it's going to be an environment, hopefully, if it works out, where people hang out Friday and they go get a beer together. They might not be working on the same project, and they share ideas. One might know Linux. One might know a different Perl or a different software platform. And they all talk and work. And they help each other out. And you never know where that's going to go. So so I just shared with you, news story. Yeah, Sibley building, HTR. I don't think they've settled the name. We have an accelerator there. But we also have private sector driven initiatives that are similar. It's a co-work space, 55 desks. And we do our RockGrowth coffee events every other month there. And that's coming up this Friday morning if you're interested, February 2nd. It's a Landsman building. It's right near Radio Social, and there's this co-work space where like 60 people they rent a desk for a month, on a monthly basis, and they interact. And there are a few of these co-works that are spread around town. And there's actually an accelerator, we're calling it a kitchen incubator, going in on the concourse level of the old Chase building, the Metropolitan building. And that has a little state money going in, but it also has the Galena support. And it's going to be for what we call urban entrepreneurs, people who are building companies that might just be very localized. If you have a food product or you want to open a restaurant. But the critical feature in these accelerators, in the modern accelerator, is being in a community of peers who can help you, but also mentoring the people like me who have been through the drill. Or I know Bob does it. You coach people, and it's gratifying. You may end up finding an opportunity you can invest in and make money, but that's how an ecosystem works. It's all of that interaction. There are no walls. And I posit that I know you're not going to have a great entrepreneurial, innovative, community without the creative class. There has to be cool stuff. All right? Someone who's going to build, they don't these cool, great companies. Most of them that we can think of now, even in New York, there's this hotbed of Etsy's and other companies, Etsy, and then West Coast. They're all in high tax, expensive places. But those places also have great theater, great music, great food, underground scene, arts. That's what attracts the people who are going to build these companies. So I like to think of the pyramid. The apex of the pyramid are my friends' companies that are now, in 10 years now employ 200 people. Those are real jobs and well-paid jobs. And there are a bunch of these. Like Dotto now hires 200 people. They arrived here 5 years ago. But that's the apex. But the foundation is having one of the great music conservatories in the world. And those kids do cool stuff on the side. There are side gigs. Having the MAG, having Jiva, having things that you might not even, the Bug Jar, So you look about, just pay attention to them, and it might not be your calling, but without that, support those people who are doing innovative out there things. You do. Rocco, I can't wait, first Friday, Rocco's show, Frederick Douglass. And I want to see Sean Dunwoodie's artwork. And Sean, I walk by his walls. The wall therapy guys. The next RockGrowth candidates were featuring Sean Dunwoodie and Ian Wilson, a transplant from Brooklyn, who started wall therapy. And they're going to be interviewed by a really cool young artist, Ray Mitrano. Now, the last person we interviewed at this event was Dr. Munson, the new president of RIT. They all fit together. All this stuff fits together. I don't find it this discordant and incongruous. So we also have these support mechanisms, lots of mentoring, events, business plan, contests is the old way of speaking, to help sustain this. It's emerging. It's a lot of grassroots stuff. So we have meetups. There's coffee, the events that we've created at RockGrowth. There's a lot of stuff going on. I remember starting Digital Rochester, and Bob, I think, was there. And I came back because I was in New York or Boston most of the week as a venture capitalist, and I'd come back here after spending a couple days there, and every night in New York or Boston, I'd have 2 or 3 things I'd have to choose from to do, to interact and mingle and find new technologies to invest in or people to recruit for the companies. And there was a dearth of that going on, so we launched Digital Rochester. We threw a party. Some people dismiss it. Throw a party? I'm like, dudes, that's where it goes. You want to sit down and watch a boring PowerPoint like you are now? No, that's how, after work, if you wear a tie, you loosen your tie, you go in, you have a cocktail. I remember one of the coolest things, a year after doing it, a couple came up to me and said, we met at your event. We're married now. I haven't tracked that marriage to see if it worked. So anyway, we do have capital. That's an issue. There's this misconception that we need to have venture capital fund here. In fact, if you're going to have a venture capital fund here, it's probably going to be minor league, rookie. The industry has expanded. There are a lot more types of funding sources. And I tell you, they find if it's a good company and worthy, they will invest here. And what we do need to work on in this area, and as more and more wealth is created among these people who still start new companies, again, entrepreneurs will start another company. They'll mentor. They don't move to Florida for 6 months in a day because of tax reasons. They remain in the game. And my friends really love Rochester and recognize the assets we have. We could find a lot of talent that will not leave after 10 months, that's affordable, that's hardworking, capable. There are a lot of reasons to do business here. And if these companies are being built anywhere, well, many of them have operations in other parts of the world. So you have a company, I was just in Sofia, Bulgaria. I met a guy who works for a company based in San Francisco. It has 150 people, 50 people in Sofia. iCardiac, Rochester based. They have an operation in Poland and Vietnam. This is how companies are being built. A friend of mine, serious venture backing, works for a financial technology company in New York. In the last 3 months, he's hired 22 people. He established an office here and hired 22 people with plans to hire 30 more. And these people in Rochester are kicking the butt of the people in New York. Actually, he's telling me there's a little tension because, you know, it's harder to staff up for those positions down there. There are certain things they need to do in New York. And I don't want to ignore social entrepreneurship is an important part of the ecosystem. We should be proud. We have a great library, obviously, but we also have some great nonprofits, and they are the gold standard in their field, like Heritage and ABVI. They're known as leaders among their peers. And this is an important part of our community, these social services and what they provide. FoodLink is amazing. And what they're doing there resembles what any entrepreneur is doing. The thing is, at the end of the day, they're not going to have a big payday individually. They might make a nice living, but it's not a for-profit. They're not going to have a cash out. They're benefiting, if they succeed, they're benefiting more people in the community. And without these two top institutions, we'd be dead in the water. I like to say we'd be Batavia. Anyone from Batavia? No. No, I'm serious. But you know what? You're here. Come on, one of the top 25 research universities. Let's hurry up and get over the controversy because that affects our entire community. It's really unfortunate. I felt it personally, what was going on in the U of R. But how many amazing things emerge? How many friends of ours, business contacts, have a connection to U of R? The reason they might be living here is because of U of R. Between a teaching university, I mean, what I get from the Eastman School of Music, from the MAG, from the healthcare my family has been provided, and just all the cool people I've met who work there or teach there, whatever. It's U of R and RIT. Dr. Munson is going to take RIT to the next level. Watch the interview with him. RIT is workforce. My friends in Syracuse and Buffalo complain about the lack of talent and technical talent. We don't have that problem here. People complain about other stuff, but I will assure you they complain about them in New York, in Silicon Valley, and in Boston. They have their complaints about the workforce development and how people don't stay very long or how much they cost. You know, there are certain gaps, and as the ecosystem improves and emerges and we have more successful companies, there's going to be more of that managerial talent, people who've been through it before. Anyway, some contact information, and I'll open it up to questions. Hopefully, I didn't make your job very hard. Okay.